Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. As we're filming this, we're coming back from the weekend, so we had a lot to absorb. MLB really got started. The Final Four is set. We saw the Elite Eight games, guys. Morgan Wallen, SNL, debuted Saturday. We'll talk about that. Walking off the stage, a little bit controversial. The torpedo bats that the New York Yankees are using, I should say, are taking the world by storm. Record numbers of home runs they're hitting. Nobody likes to see that except if you're in the Bronx, of course, especially us as Guardians with our history with them. But we start with March Madness, guys. Chalk in March. For the first time since 2008, all four number one seeds have reached the Final Four and won their respective regions. That's, of course, number one seed Duke, who at this point looks like the team to beat the rest of the way in the tournament. Houston, Florida, and Auburn. What did you guys think of the Elite Eight games? We'll dive into them maybe specifically, but as it relates in terms to all four number one seeds coming out of their respective regions.
You know, there's this cheap term in sports we use sometimes that is appreciating greatness, which is like the buzzword we all use whenever the good team wins in sports. And that's the way we make it right with ourselves that the underdog we were rooting for didn't win. So I guess we're just appreciating a lot of greatness this March so far. I don't know, like fun seeing Clayton and Florida come back. Awesome. Yeah. Broom hit that crazy shot for Auburn to end the game. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. Like you get to see these top schools, these number one seeds go on and do their thing. But guys, is March all the way gone? Who Ryan, you talked about it a couple times. Who's going to be the upset? Who's going to be the star of March? Did they ever come?
No, they didn't in terms of there was no janitor salesman in 4 years that took over the world by storm. There was no team you thought maybe McNeese could be it that took the world by storm. But I don't think that takes away from March. It does in that aspect, but there were still fantastic games. It's more fun. It's more exciting. It means more sometimes when you see the underdogs win in any sport, March Madness especially, but any sport really. But that doesn't, to me, take away from one, March Madness, two, you've had amazing games, even if the comeback did come on the heels of a number one seed in Florida when they played Texas Tech. So that element is gone. But I still think to say March is gone, I wouldn't go that far.
I'm getting nervous. I don't think March is gone. It was just a down year for the tournament, I think. And you don't want to see that become a trend. I'm a little bit nervous about that becoming a trend because of NIL. You know, now you could go get paid more money to be the ninth guy on Duke's bench, or you could be the starting point guard at one of these mid-major schools and not make as much money. So I'm a little bit nervous that, you know, part of what makes March great is the big upsets, especially in those first 2 days of the tournament. And I knew Thursday, Friday, in the first opening round of March Madness, where we didn't have any true madness, that it really could be an all chalk March, and that's kind of what it turned out to be.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate in that aspect, but we go to the games. I mean, we'll talk about the games later this week, I guess, because they're not. Or when is the first game? Saturday, right?
Yeah,
so
both Final Four
you still have a
games
whole week to go, which is okay, I guess. It lets you absorb the basketball. Duke, though, looks like the team to beat. Is Cooper Flagg stoppable? I don't think he is, but if anybody has the best chance, it's Houston, who has one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the country. That inbounds play from Kelvin Sampson, where he threw it in, he immediately bounced it back to the guy who came in. I mean, that was just beautiful basketball.
It was. I don't think that there's anybody in this tournament, and I thought this prior to, you know, the Elite Eight, and nobody can hang with Duke. That was kind of the consensus thought going in. We'll see what shakes this weekend, but right now it really feels like somebody has to steal it from the Blue Devils.
Yeah, I mean, Houston definitely is the team that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, I think. Held Tennessee to 15 points in the first half in the Elite Eight, which was unprecedented to that point in time in the history of March Madness, which is an event that has gone on for a very long time. So that's important to note. They're a team who's more fun offensively this year than years in the past, but they do still play that very slow style of basketball where if you're going to beat a Cooper Flagg and the 4 or 5 studs they have around him, you might just have to bore them and slow them down the same way that when you play in Ohio State in football, you got to run the ball over and over again to try and make the game as short as possible.
The craziest part is holding Alabama to 65 points. You know the offensive firepower, but Alabama just scored triple digits the round before that, and you held them to 65 points. So they're playing tremendous on both ends of that.
Sears had, 10 threes in that game or something ridiculous like that?
He was 10 for 16.
They looked like the offensive team of the tournament.
It's crazy. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out at this point. I mean, nothing would be considered an upset. Like, if you beat Duke, I guess it would be an upset, but nobody's going to sit there and really cheer like we would if it was a McNeese or something like that. But you said worst tourney ever, ? Jack. You standing by that?
I mean, I don't have a super great base history of the tournament prior to my lifetime, but of the ones I've watched, yeah, it's probably up there. Like, there's not really even one underdog that I can truly think of is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna remember that one in a couple of years. What this tournament is going to be, it's going to be either remembered as the coming out party for Cooper Flagg as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, or it's going to be that, oh yeah, you remember when Cooper Flagg went off in March, got drafted 1, and then stunk after? It's just going to be one of those two. So either way it happens, it's the tournament of Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, they're probably struggling for the one shining moment footage. Like, I mean, it's cool, but if you don't have the McNeese States, Arkansas made it for a while. Like, you only had, 2 appearances of Ora Khan. It's not going to be that special, but it is what it is. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, we're talking about our Cleveland Guardians. They start the season with a series win against the Kansas City Royals. Pitching looks good. Hitting looks good. A couple things we need to work on. We'll talk about that when we get back on The Big Factor. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. We're brought to you today like we are every single day by our great friends at Fairway Ford, Ohio. Fairway Ford is the largest Ford truck dealership in the entire state. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s and Super Duty trucks, and I promise you they will not be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Do not let a short drive to Canfield prevent you from saving literally thousands of dollars on your new truck. That's thousands of dollars. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com, and they'll deliver to you in all 50 states. All right, guys, the Guardians. We talked about the first opening game that took last Thursday. We finally got a weekend of meaningful, real baseball in the books. Turned out the Guardians are pretty damn good still, at least it seems a couple games into the season. They take the series 2-1 against the Kansas City Royals. We got to see Bobby pitch. We got to see Gavin pitch this week. What'd you guys think?
5 big booms out of me. I love what I saw out of these guards. And really that was more so about the opener. I love how you started the season the same way that you left things off last year, where things, were exciting. You fell behind late. Class A tried his hardest to blow the save, and you still found a way to win in extras. That's the kind of spirit that we needed to kick off the season. That's the sort of mentality that this club's going to need, especially in the first couple of weeks of the year. Remember, they're going to deal with, the subtraction of Josh Naylor, the subtraction of Jimenez. Not to mention now you are going to be without Jose Ramirez for at least a smidge with that wrist sprain. That's what they need, is just to have some feel-good victories under their belts because they are going to be a little bit undermanned to start the year.
Yeah, biggest takeaway, of course, is that all of the ops in the AL Central had a very bad weekend. So that's the first thing. But second, not even that deep into the game analysis. It's just that baseball is back in the sense that baseball fans are back. Nothing makes me happier than the first 3 games of the year. Really, April every single year is when everyone kind of forgets that the season's 162 games long and everyone overreacts like crazy, back and forth, like, oh, middle of the order went 0 for 9 today, like all that kind of stuff. Like, shut up. We just started. Everyone's got to calm down a little bit, but that's my biggest takeaway from the weekend, is that baseball fans are back because everyone forgets just how long the season is.
Yeah, we'll start with the game that happened Saturday. That was, of course, Gavin Williams' first start of this season. Looked pretty good, right? Went 5 innings, 4 hits. Didn't miss as many bats as I thought a guy like Gavin Williams would, but it is his first start. 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. They were putting the ball in play, but they were weak hits. I thought Gavin looked pretty damn good. Maybe not the stuff we expect to see, but like I said, it's the first start of the season. And we'll get to Bybee, but those first 2 starts of the season between Ben Lively and Gavin Williams, 0 complaints from me.
Yeah, I thought Gavin Williams was awesome. He's still getting to a point in his career where he was drafted to be kind of a strikeout pitcher. Like, that hasn't really come along yet. He has that awesome curveball that like loops over top of you, the roller coaster curveball, as we like to call it here on the Big Factor. Yeah, you'd like to think that those strikeout numbers will tick up as he gets older, but that's not a concern because he doesn't need to get outs that way. he's good enough to get outs in other facets of the ball game as well. His fastball looked good. That's the biggest thing with Gavin Williams is you got to watch that fastball. Is he throwing it for strikes? If it's not for a strike, is it close enough where you're getting a swing? Are guys late on it? How are guys reacting to it? He was throwing strikes. That was the biggest thing for Gavin Williams, in my opinion.
Yeah, good Gavin Williams. Good Quan, a home run, his first of the season. We talk, can he really get to 20 home runs? Imagine how huge that would be for the Guardians outfield. And we go to the bad. Paul Sewald, he gets the loss in this one. 0.2 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 earned runs. Jack, you weren't necessarily, well, not even necessarily, you weren't a fan of the signing. Other people were. Bruce Drennan, I'll say. He likes the signing. Not the greatest start out of the bullpen for Paul Sewald.
I'm definitely in the minority. I should say that are not against the Paul Sewald signing. I'm sure he's a great dude, but yeah, I'm not a Paul Sewald guy, right? I'm going to come out and make a public statement about that. I do understand that he saved 16 games last year, as did 28 other pitchers in baseball, but he is 35 years old, I believe. The Cleveland Guardians had 4 pitchers last year who had a sub-2 ERA, as well as a plethora of relief pitching prospects, not just Andrew Walters and Eric Sabrowski, but going even further deep in the system, you have guys like Andrew Misiazik, Franco Ailman, Nick Mikolajchuk. I cannot pronounce his last name, but he will be up this year as well at some point. With all the options we have in the bullpen, and we don't spend money, Quan doesn't have an extension. Gavin Williams, who I would have liked to see get extended, doesn't have an extension. Obviously, 1 or 2 little moves isn't going to dictate all of the money you need to get these guys back. But folks, for an organization who does not spend money year in and year out, we put $11 million this offseason into Paul Sewald, who's going to be your 5th best reliever this season at best. Like, his ceiling is going to be your number 5 reliever, $7 million. And then Austin Hedges, who's been hitting on the dollar menu since 2019, is making $4 million. So, but for $11 million on a team who, I mean, like, that's what Matthew Boyd got, basically. So, like, maybe you could have got Matthew Boyd back. You're getting your 5th best reliever and the worst hitter in baseball.
Well, we'll go to Sunday now. The Bats showed up. They scored 6 runs. They beat the Royals 6-2 to cap off that series. I mentioned they got the series win 2-1. Tanner Bybee, the latest guy to get paid for the Cleveland Guardians. A good outing for him. 5 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 Ks. Did his job, and that goes back to say, great start for Ben Lively. What you expect out of him. Gavin Williams, good. I would say not great, but good. It's the first start of the season. And Tanner Bybee, good as well. After coming off of that food poisoning mishap, they get the win.
And that Sunday game, you looked at the lineup without Jose Ramirez, and you said this lineup instills fear in nobody, and that was the best display of offense that we saw all season long. Obviously, the second Stephen Kwan home run of the season helped things. Gabriel Arias contributed a home run as well. I know Jack was a fan of that, but again, nice to see the guys rally without Jose in there.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about pop, there's guys who, like, when Quan hits a home run, and there's nothing against Quan home runs because they're awesome and we all love them. Stephen Kwan usually isn't just like going oppo, just hitting it wherever he wants. Gabriel Arias smoked that baseball. Can we talk about that? Like 400 feet opposite field. That is absolutely ridiculous. But the biggest thing for me with the Guardians on Sunday yesterday was that when you have a lineup like Nick said, where your stars out, there's not a ton of known names or hot commodities in that lineup, a bunch of guys who are putting up good at bats, and that's what's really going to change this season around compared to last year's. If those lower echelon guys can put up major league at bats and kind of supplement the top of the order. Daniel Schneemann, obviously home run, cool, awesome. I mean, you can't control that outcome. 3 walks outside of that. Like, that's the guy who's getting on base no matter what's happening. Bo Naylor got on base. Nolan Jones had 2 walks yesterday. Like, when you're looking at that bottom half of the order, you're looking at, okay, even if they're not necessarily going to hit the home runs, and yesterday they did, like, are they getting on base? Are they putting up consistent at-bats? Like, you have guys like Bo Naylor. I believe Bo Naylor and Nolan Jones were both top 5 in baseball in, like, amount of pitches seen per at-bat. So, like, once you can kind of start to formulate these things where it takes longer to get through the first time of the order, that's how eventually later in the year it's going to become more difficult for guys to get outs the second time through the order against the top of the order when the bottom is actually contributing.
And you weren't going against some schlubs, right? Like the Royals starting rotation, at least the top 3, is pretty damn good, right? Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha. You weren't going to hit against some guys that don't know what they're doing. 6 walks on the game on Sunday. I thought that was a big underrated part of their victory there. You mentioned they're seeing the ball pretty well. You mentioned the home runs from Gabriel Arias. You mentioned the home run from Daniel Schneemann. Guy who now leads the Guardians with 2 home runs, that's Kyle Manzardo, another multi-hit effort. Yeah. He's now batting .455. The Kyle Manzardo breakout agenda continues for us, Jack.
Yeah, it's definitely early, and we got to remind everyone it's 162 games. He's going to slow down a little bit here at some point. Probably won't hit 800 against lefties the whole entire year either. If he does, I mean, go ahead and take on Hell with a Squirt Gun. Good for him. I mean, I'm rooting for Kyle Manzardo, but the biggest thing, is that he's getting hits off lefties, and it gives you a little bit of like special warm and fuzzies inside, doesn't it? Because we love platooning our guys, and maybe Kyle Manzardo's proving there's a world where that might not need to be the case for him. But the biggest thing is he kind of struggled to walk early on in spring training. He came out, he's taking pitches too. He just looks good, and eventually maybe get him into the field could help as well. But it seems like he's comfortable in that DH role. It seems like when they sent him down last year, that was the big goal in Columbus, is get him comfortable DHing every day. It's tough to do because you go 0 for 4 sometimes in baseball, but I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Manzo, guys.
Yeah, Clase, not a bad outing. Didn't give up a run, but again, you saw him hit Jonathan India in the head. That could not have felt good. I felt bad for him. You saw him walking off, went right to the locker room. Not worried, but what's your guys' thoughts on Clase? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier in the week. A 1 out of 10 on the panic meter. Doesn't look phenomenal. It's been a while, let's call it for what it is, since he's had a very clean inning. I'll say that.
Yeah, first off, I would like to commend Vinny Pasquantino of the Royals for his post-game comments, because there was a lot of people on Guardians Twitter who were like, oh, like, this guy's saying this and that. I think Vinny Pasquantino gave maybe the most A-plus answer anyone could have given to that question. So that's on you, Guards Twitter. He didn't mess up that time. But, guys, it's a little bit concerning, isn't it? I sat here and told you 1 out of 10 on the show on Friday. I'm not raising it above a 1 out of 10 yet because we're only 3 games into the baseball season. But he's got to control his pitches, man. I mean, there's definitely, don't get me wrong. You throw a billion pitches a year, some are going to get away from you, but you're right, Ryan. It definitely has been a little bit of time since we've seen a clean, full outing out of Emmanuel Clase. And that's kind of what these outings are supposed to be when you're not coming in a save scenario. Like, you just go in, you get your work, you throw your pitches, boom, we come out on the other side. Especially because, like, you could have used him in San Diego today if you really needed him to. So if you're going to use him, not in a save out, you want him to come out and play well.
Yeah. All right. I want to take a break, and then when we get back, I want to look a little bit ahead to this Padres series. They're 4-0. They swept the Atlanta Braves. Jose Ramirez is going to be out for a little bit of time, and the torpedo bats that are taking the world by storm that the Yankees are using, mashing home runs. We'll talk about that when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. I mentioned Fairway Ford earlier, but of course, we're also brought to you by our also great friends over at Garage Beer. Guys, Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness, no IPA, guys. It's just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. You can see those delicious ice-cold beers up at the top of this screen, lime and the classic. Guys, there is no better beer to drink when you're just sitting around watching a baseball game, especially during the day. I mean, you can drink plenty and still feel great in the morning. I promise you that. None of the IPAs, none of the gross flavors, guys. This is just the perfect beer, and Garage Beer is the perfect name for it. All right, guys. Jose Ramirez sprained his wrist sliding into second base on Saturday. Vogt says nothing structurally wrong with Ramirez's wrist. It's just a matter of, quote, getting the swelling and soreness out. Not panicking. 0 for 6 before the injury. It's Jose Ramirez, known for slower starts. I mean, you talk about a 1 out of 10 of a panic meter on Clase, 1 out of 10 for a panic meter on Jose, but you never like to see an injury this early in the season.
No, this stings a little bit, because if you know anything about sprains as well, is there's something that could oftentimes linger, especially in a wrist, which is so important for a third baseman in literally everything that he does on the diamond, at the plate. This is going to impact Jose Ramirez, whether we want to talk about it or not. I'm glad that they shut him down. Stephen Vogt said after the game that he is day-to-day, but Jose Ramirez wants to play and wants to play through everything. I would rather have a healthy Jose Ramirez in August as the Guards look to make an American League Central push to win this division, to make the playoffs. So whatever. Gonna be without him for a little bit of time, it seems, but the guards will be okay.
Spin zone. Okay, first of all, Nick, I totally agree with you. You're right. You hold that man out as long as he needs. You don't need Jose Ramirez until October. Obviously, we got to make the playoffs, but if he needs 2 weeks, that's fine. But the good thing that's going to come out of this is that Gabriel Arias and Daniel Schneemann are going to get at-bats every single day for the next couple of days. They took advantage of it and both hit home runs yesterday. But the most important thing is we're getting closer and closer to the point where we can put out our verdict on Gabriel Arias and Daniel Schneemann as Cleveland Guardians fans. They're going to get a whole lot of at-bats here to start off the season because, guys, I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going down in Columbus right now, or more specifically, it was out in Toledo last weekend. But Juan Brito and Angel Martinez are hitting the crap out of the ball to start the year in Columbus. So, hey, maybe we get Jose back. We figure out one of these two guys isn't it. Juan Brito, you're a Cleveland Guardian.
I got to be honest. I would love to have Jose Ramirez as we enter this Padres series. Okay, they're 4-0. They swept the Braves. They look pretty damn good. And what concerns me, I guess I can't be concerned this early. I got to go let them prove to me that there's reason for concern, and that's Luis Ortiz, who will get the first start on Monday against the Padres. Then you flip it over to Logan Allen, and then Ben Lively to close out that thing on Wednesday. I don't love that slate of starting pitchers against a 4-0 team. I know it's damn early, and they haven't even had a start yet. Luis Ortiz, pretty big struggles in spring. I know it's spring ball. You're not necessarily throwing your best stuff, maybe. I guess, what do you guys expect out of Logan Allen and Luis Ortiz as we see them to start this season against a pretty damn good team in the Padres?
I don't want to base anything off spring, man. I really don't. I'm going into this complete clean slate on both guys. I'm going in no agendas, clean slate. We need Ortiz to be good. I've talked about that ad nauseum. That was the major league piece that you got back this offseason when you departed Josh Naylor and Jimenez. You need Ortiz to be good in that 3 spot. You need Logan Allen, who was the darling of spring, to be good. It's Slam Diego, though, so you have to be a little bit nervous. You know they like hitting the long ball out that way, but come on, they could do it.
Yeah, but between Tatis, Soler, and Merrill, who are all great against left-handed pitching, I, for one vote, we send Logan Allen out there with a Remember the Alamo flag in his back pocket. That could be a tough one. You know, I'm a big Logan Allen guy, though, so I'd like to see the kid fight through, but what it came down to last year is he didn't trust his stuff. He was struggling to get strikes early in the count, like placing his fastball low in the zone, whatever, and he walked too many hitters and eventually got to the point where he was letting up bombs because he had to throw strikes with the bases loaded, which is never a good philosophy. Luis Ortiz struggled a lot in spring, but it's going to be what the Guardians always have to do. You go out there, you run the bases hard, you play the game hard, and you hope your pitchers give you a chance to win. That's how they play baseball. But yeah, I mean, either way, I wouldn't freak out too much about how these guys do. You're facing, as Nick said, a great offense so early in the year. You want to give any starter, especially like a fringe guy, like 3 to 4 starts at least to start the year. But I'm actually excited. I'm going to come out and say that. I'm excited to see Logan Allen pitch against a tough lineup for left-handed pitchers because Logan Allen bounced back year.
All right, let's talk about it. Guardians had a good weekend. I don't think anybody had a worse weekend than Nestor Cortez, or as we like to call him, Nasty Nestor. 3 straight pitches, 3 straight home runs to start the game. Paul Goldschmidt, Cody Bellinger, and Aaron Judge all go yard. That game was over before it even started. The Torpedo Bats have taken the world by storm. Yankees hit a AL/NL record, 15 home runs in their first 3 games of a season. 13 of those came in just 2 games, guys. I don't know too much about these Torpedo Bats other than they are legal. Major League Baseball confirmed Sunday the bats did not violate Major League rules. The rule states that bats cannot be more than 2.61 inches in diameter and 42 inches in length. They checked the bats out, and they're legal.
Have you guys seen Semi-Pro before with Will Ferrell
Yes.
at any point in your lives?
Like the alley-oop.
It reminds me a lot of the alley-oop. Like, is this real? Is this legal? The thing about the Torpedo Bat is it seems like the public's not against it. Like, if every team gets it, yeah, every team's going to get it. Woohoo, fun, whatever. But the funny thing is, people are kind of against it because it's the Yankees. Because imagine this. If the Pirates had missed the playoffs for the last 13 years, then out of nowhere they came out with Torpedo Bats opening weekend, the Pirates would be America's team right now. We'd all be rooting for them, you know? But it's the Yankees, so no one's going to like it. Yeah, they hit a lot of home runs. The Brewers came out and they were saying the whole, it's not the magician, or it's not the wand, it's the magician, which good for them for coming out not being poor sports about it. But yeah, guys, so either this time next week the Guards are going to have like 50 home runs or they're going to be gone. Who knows? But guys, weirdest story of the sports here, I think. It's changing the sport.
I'm saying let's ban the torpedo bats. Let's nip this thing in the butt right now. Ban them because
they're legal.
They're legal, but this is going to create a slippery slope because at what point can things spiral out of the way where you manipulate equipment so much and so far where Major League Baseball loses control of what's legal and what's not? Obviously, this is even a fine line because we're having the debate of should they be banned, should they not? So, if it's the classic adage in life that goes, if you give someone an inch, they'll take a mile. If you give them torpedo bats, I'm afraid to find out what happens next. I would just nip this in the butt, ban these torpedo bats. I'm sorry, Yankees, you already play in a Mickey Mouse ballpark where it's easy enough to hit out home runs anyway. Use that to your advantage. Let's try not to take too much here with these stupid bats.
What if we... Yeah, I agree. I'm against the torpedo bat. What if we just said, you know what? Move the fences back like another 75 feet, metal bats.
Metal bats. That's what I'm saying. Because the playing field has to be equal, and the torpedo bat is not equal. They hired, this wasn't just some happenstance equipment guy that figured this out. They hired this nerd from MIT who got in a lab and built these bats for the last couple of years. This isn't some, mirage that happened overnight. They had unequal access to innovation. They really did to develop these things. So unless it was an equal playing field and the guards had this amount of time to figure out these torpedo bats, then nobody should be able to have them.
I mean, considering we don't have a backup catcher who can hit 200 on the roster, I don't think Paul Dillon was going to invest in modern technology outside of the sport. But yeah, we got to figure something out, right? Because it just doesn't make sense. You can't have one team with bats that look like that. We played baseball the same way for as long as I can remember. Probably even further than I can remember, we played baseball with bats that look just like that.
Well, Yankees Anthony Volpe, who's I believe hit 2 home runs now, he says, quote, "It's probably just a placebo. A lot of it's just looking up at your bat, seeing how big the barrel is, but it's exciting. I think any 0.01% mentality, it gives you confidence and helps."
I mean, that's the company line.
Yeah,
there.
that's just wrong.
What else is he supposed to say?
I guess. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the MLB does. You can't just ban them, especially it won't be banned this year. I mean, we're not going to talk about this day, but the tush push is getting momentum to get banned. I think that'll get banned before these torpedo bats. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, the Cavs, they reach their 60th win of the season as the regular season gets to an end, leading the East, the number 1 seed of the Celtics by 4.5 games. As we record today, we'll talk about what their plan should be the rest of the season going forward when we get back on the Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone.
Doing it?
Yeah.
Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers have reached their 60th win of the season after they downed the Los Angeles Clippers. 4.5 game lead as we record this today over the Celtics for the number 1 spot. Not many games, guys. I believe 7 games as we record left in the regular season before we head to the playoffs. Now, my question for you guys is, what do you guys want to see out of the Cavs as they do this last regular season stretch? Do you want load management? Are you focused on until you lock up that 1 seed for sure? I know you're close, but it's the NBA. Anything can happen. Your guys' mentality for this Cavs team going forward.
I like what Kenny Atkinson said actually after they lost Friday against the Pistons, which was a loss that had a lot of people kind of freaking out, felt like sky is falling. At that point, the Celtics are just 4 games away from taking that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I think that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference is very important. If it comes down to Cavs versus Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, I would love that series to run through Cleveland. That should be of the utmost importance. But secondarily to that, it's staying healthy, it's staying fresh, and it's really tuning up for the playoffs. It's finding the rotations that work. It's finding the 8 or 9 guys that you're going to go into the game with. Obviously, who's going to start the game is pretty much figured out. Who's going to close the game? Those are the sorts of things that I want to see the Cavs work on over this next stretch. I really think they went into a slump over the last couple of weeks out of sheer boredom. I really think the fans are bored. I talked to a couple people that work here on this network that said that they haven't watched the Cavs in a little bit. People are just ready for the playoffs to start. I think the team is ready for the playoffs to start. Atkinson said, look, you never want to be slumping at this point of the season. This is usually where you want to be starting to hit in your stride, playing your best basketball. But trust their body of work from this entire season. This is a great basketball team, and they're going to be good come playoff time.
It would be nice, don't get me wrong, to get the number 1 seed all the way through if you manage to reach the finals, possibly OKC.
Yeah.
You'd want that home court, but I agree with you kind of what you said. I think it's just so much more vital to, one, focus on going into the playoffs healthy, and then that home court advantage versus Celtics, I think, is so much more important than it would be over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the rest of this regular season, you get the Knicks twice more. You get the Pacers, a playoff team.
Yep.
You got a chance to get a little more fat on like the Spurs and the Bulls, a Kings game in the mix of there. I guess I'll ask you this question, guys. Which non-Celtics team, because I think there's that grand size chasm between the Celtics, the Cavs, and the rest of the East, would scare you the most? Would it be the Knicks? Would it be the Pacers? Would it be the Orlando Magic?
See, I mean, Sam Amico has that graphic out in the universe now. So the Magic do scare me just because the Magic fans can screenshot our king, Sam Amico. But gosh,
there are Magic fans?
What? I'm sure, yeah, because they got the Orlando Magic. Like, they got the song. Yeah, they got a couple. For me, it's the Hawks. And again, it's the whole thing. They beat us a couple times this year. They beat us in the play-in a couple of years ago. I know we stole one of their best players and pawned off a couple of our not as best players, but it's that thing. Like, could you not see George Niang having the best series of his career against the Cavs?
No, I couldn't.
And Karis LeVert drops 25. Like, it's the Cleveland luck. That's what scares me.
Nick?
I'll say the Knicks. You know, the Knicks were the darlings of the offseason. They've got to get healthy. That's the one thing with any Tibbs coach team, is that he runs these guys in the ground. They're already undermanned. They're probably going to be undermanned come playoff time. But you can't sleep on the fact that they gave the Cavs fits 2 years ago. I think there's something to be said about the lights in Madison Square Garden, especially come playoff time. We know how bright they are. Oh, yeah, not to mention they added Bridges over the offseason. They added Karl Anthony Towns over the offseason. So this is a better New York Knicks team than what the Cavs fell to 2 years ago. So outside of Boston, I guess I'm on the lookout for number 3, New York.
It's definitely either the Knicks or the Pacers for me. I don't know. The Knicks just don't scare me that much. I know there's playoff history. If you have to go play in the Garden, it's tough.
And the Pacers score a lot.
That's
so
the
to your
thing,
point,
too.
Because it's tough to slow them down.
The Cavs. I don't have any issue or any thought that the Cavs aren't going to have any problem scoring. But when you're going against a team that can also put up 120 any given night, like the Pacers can, I could see something crazy happening. All right, we got to take another break. We're flipping it over to the Browns. Andrew Berry basically says, listen, the Browns aren't going to trade up to the number 1 pick to draft what probably would be Cam Ward. Draft right around the corner. We'll break that down when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Jack is barking over there, Nick Padone at the desk, because the draft is literally just weeks away as April comes. All right, guys. Andrew Berry was basically asked about the possibility of them trading up to number 1. They're at number 2 now to draft what probably will be the number 1 pick in quarterback Cam Ward. Andrew Berry said, candidly, I won't necessarily see that as likely. There's a number of players we like in this draft relatively high, but I think as we come to really the end of March, first week of April, we're coming down to the home stretch, so to speak, about probably the best player assessment phase of the draft process. And then as we really get into the month of April, that's when we really dive into strategy. So he didn't actually absolutely shut it down, but made it seem pretty unlikely that the Browns would move to the number 1 pick from number 2.
I believe no team in history of the NFL draft has traded up from number 2 overall to number 1 overall. So there's no precedent. And what's scary about something that has no precedent is the fact that the Tennessee Titans can really ask for whatever they want. And they're going to want an absolute king's ransom. I think everybody in this room is under the belief that Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. He's going to go to the Tennessee Titans. Brian Callahan's going to get his quarterback. And that puts all of the attention to the Cleveland Browns with the number 2 pick. So I didn't mind Andrew Berry saying this. It's actually good positioning on Berry's front because it shows the Titans, hey, I'm publicly saying that it's something that we're really all not that interested in. So if the price is astronomical, bring it down if that's something that the Titans even want to entertain. But there's nothing wrong with stay and put it 2 and drafting your guy there.
Yeah, well, Andrew Berry said it's pretty rare for the number 1 overall pick to be traded in general, but he said the cost of going 2 to 1 is drastically different than the cost of, he said, going from 76 to 75, for instance. You're right. It would be a king's ransom. And unless you really have that huge gap between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and you don't view them as maybe 1A, 1B, which I get a lot of people don't, that move might not make sense because I'd imagine you'd have to trade off your 33 possibly, and to me, that is just way too rich.
And Ryan, potentially a first-round pick next year to trade up 1 spot in the NFL draft. And the Browns are in a spot right now where you can't afford to be doing that. You just went 3 long, cold years without a first-round pick. That's a major risk. If they were to entertain that trade up to number 1 for Cam Ward, you better be damn sure that he's going to be good enough where next year's first-round pick wouldn't matter. And I don't think that's the situation that the Browns are in. I think, if they ace this first-round pick this year and number 33 overall this year, then next year you're at best sitting in a position where you have a pick in the high teens, low 20s. That's still very valuable. That's still a pick that's worth keeping around. If you were to trade next year's first-round pick, you'd be telling teams, hey, we're expecting to be AFC championship contenders, Super Bowl contenders, and that's just not reality for where this organization's at right now.
Nick, I asked you a couple times throughout these last couple of weeks as we get closer to the draft, your confidence meter of the Browns drafting a quarterback at number 2. Heading into the combine and leaving the combine, you were even more affirmed that the Browns would take a quarterback at 2. Now, all the sports books, all the draft gurus, they're linking a lot of Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns at number 2. So I guess my question is, again, where's your confidence level that the Browns take a quarterback? And obviously it would most likely be Shedeur Sanders at number 2.
I've seen the Abdul Carter stuff. Can we just put it out there that it's hard to ignore? And the more mock drafts you read, the more that, things start to lean Abdul Carter. I've, also in recent days have had some stronger convictions about Travis Hunter. I really think in a dream world where the Browns had their quarterback room all mapped out, fait accompli, Travis Hunter is a guy that Andrew Berry would love to get his hands on either side of the football, offensively as a dynamite playmaker at receiver or defensively as a lockdown corner, especially because outside of Denzel Ward, that room can look a little bit thin for years to come. But I think as you weigh each and every option, and I think this is what is going to boil down to for the Browns, as you weigh each option and you understand the significance of the quarterback position, you understand that currently as we record this show right here today on Monday, March 31st, the only quarterback on your roster is Kenny Pickett. Then we start hearing reports from the owners meeting this week. Andrew Berry told the media that the room will look younger, skew younger. My confidence is still, Ryan, at the point that it was when I left Indianapolis based off the conversations that I had there, that I love that they're doing their due diligence. I love that they're getting a good look at Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, these, sleeper 33 quarterbacks as well, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. but I truly am convicted in my stance that the number 2 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns will be Shedeur Sanders when it's all said and done.
If you're the Browns, to me, you can't walk out of this draft without one of Cam Ward, which you're probably not going to have the opportunity to. Then it leads me to you can't walk out without Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. And to me, there's a gap between Shedeur and Jackson Dart. And you're sitting at 33. To get him now, it seems like you're going to have to trade back into the first. There's talk about the Steelers taking him with their first pick. We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But even if Aaron Rodgers goes there, I still think it'd be a good idea for them to draft a guy like Jackson Dart.
And here's my one thought, because the Jackson Dart smoke and love has been out there. And again, I'm a fan that the Browns are doing their homework on all of these options, because ultimately at the end of the day, what I think should happen and what I think will happen is that Kevin Stefanski deserves his opportunity to call his shot on his next quarterback, because we've seen him make it work with Joe Flacco, who nobody wanted. We've seen him make it work with PJ Walker, Jacoby Brissett, all of these guys. The piece with Jackson Dart is that it's extremely raw. He's 21 years old. That's not a guy that you want playing any games next year. And the Browns need a guy that probably is going to have to play some games next year at the quarterback position. He played in an Ole Miss offense that was very fun, but it was so fun because it's quarterback friendly. It's a lot of one-read stuff, rip it down the field. One-read stuff, if the rip it down the field isn't there, we're checking it down to our athletic backs and slots. That's not really how NFL offenses work. So I'm not here to throw cold water on Jackson Dart, because I do think he's an intriguing prospect. He's just going to need a full year, and I don't know that the Browns have that.
All right, well, let's play a little quick buy or sell for the Cleveland Browns as we head to the draft. We'll start here. In this year's 2025 NFL draft, are you buying or selling that the Cleveland Browns will draft 2 quarterbacks?
I'll buy it. I'll buy that they'll draft 2 quarterbacks, because if I'm saying that I believe that they're going to draft one at number 2 overall, I also have on great authority that the Cleveland Browns had a meeting in Indianapolis with Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. I know that might cringe out some Ohio State fans out there, but they are doing their homework on Kyle McCord. I think they're doing their homework on all of these guys. So they own the 6th round. They have 4 6th-round picks. I believe that they'll take 2 quarterbacks, because you got to fill out this QB room somehow.
Not so fast, my friend. I think we're going 1 quarterback this year, and it's just because I don't know.
No
I
Riley
don't
Leonard?
It's just a gut feeling. It's honestly just a gut feeling. I still think Carson Wentz wears the brown and orange this year. So I think we're looking Wentz, Pickett, Deshaun, QB1.
And Jack, there's also a lot to be said that if you're going to invest the number 2 overall pick into a quarterback, that's a significant piece of your draft capital. The number 2 overall pick right now is the most valuable thing that the organization has. It used to be Myles Garrett was the most valuable thing that the organization had, but now he's on a massive $40 million a year contract, and he has a no-trade clause. So Myles Garrett's here. That number 2 overall pick is the most valuable thing you got. If you're going to spend it on a quarterback, it could maybe lead them to steer away from quarterback later and use that on RBs, receivers, anything else.
All right, last one here. Buy or sell the Cleveland Browns. A running back will come off the board for the Browns before the end of round 3. Now, the Cleveland Browns obviously have pick number 2. They have pick number 33 in the second round, and then they have 2/3 at 67 and 94. Buy or sell?
Buy. I'm buying that all day
sinking
long.
it.
Yeah, you need to come out of this draft with 2 running backs. If we know one thing about this draft, it's that it's a deep running back class, and it's a deep defensive end and defensive lineman draft. The Browns have a need at running back. Nick Chubb, that free agency signing is still out there. I think it does happen. I think Nick Chubb finds his way back here, but the lack of interest elsewhere should tell you what the rest of the NFL feels like Nick Chubb has left, and that's unfortunately not a whole lot. So I would draft 2 running backs, and I would love nothing more than for one of those running backs to be either of the 2 guys out of Ohio State.
Jack, any thoughts?
I love that idea, because I think you are 1,000,000% right. 2 running backs this year in the draft, because right now, to be quite frank, that room stinks. You have to, like, Marion Hampton up high, and then on the loop around way later in the draft, he's fallen. Oh, injury issues. He's getting sued. Cam Scatabo, you are the next Peyton Hillis.
I knew that was coming. I've seen a lot of 33 mocks. They draft Travion Henderson. I've seen later if you can get an Ollie Gordon, a Cam Scatabo. I don't know where. I don't know where Omari and Hampton will go. I mean, if you could get him at that 60 spot, I mean, I don't know how you'd pass on that, but I assume he'd go before that. You mentioned Ollie Gordon. I don't know. We'll see what the Browns will do. Just a couple weeks away. I'm excited for finally those dominoes and all the mock drafts to be behind us, and we get a look at the real thing.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take one more break. We're going off the sports world. Morgan Wallen appeared on SNL. Some people, I should say, didn't really like the way he walked off the stage while the credits rolled, just like our friend Jack did there off camera. We'll talk about that when we get back on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Jack Rourke, Nick Padone. As we wrap this thing off, I said we're going off the sports world a little bit. We're talking about Morgan Wallen, country superstar, who was the musical guest on this past Saturday's episode of Saturday Night Live, hosted by, it was Mikey Madison, who, by the way, won Best Actress. Was in the film Nora, who won Best Picture. I just watched it yesterday. Amazing film.
How was it? Good?
Oh, it was fantastic. I was shocked it won Best Picture of the year, but it was still a phenomenal film, and she did an incredible job. Anyways, we're talking about Morgan Wallen, though. As I mentioned, the credits roll, and every Saturday Night Live, you see all the cast, the crew, the musical guests, the actual host, all come together celebrating their episode. Well, as soon as the credits rolled, you see Morgan Wallen. He walked off stage. People didn't really like that. And then right after that, he posted on his Instagram, I'll throw up the picture here, on his story on Instagram, "Get me to God's country." And I mean, there's no other really way to take that other than get me the heck out of here. I'm ready to go home to a place other than New York. And this comes off the heels, guys, of Morgan Wallen was originally supposed to host once in 2020, not canceled, but they took him off the list because of COVID protocols. He was seen out at partying with bars, with girls, a very Morgan Wallen thing to do. But some people didn't like the way he walked off stage.
I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened in Morgan Wallen's life where if you want to get on him for it or not like him for it, rightfully so, go ahead. I'm not going to attack you for it. I get it. This one's dumb, though. I mean, he just, like, all he's required to do is go to the episode. He didn't do anything bad or say anything mean. Like, you do your episode, you do your business, and I get it that they stand up on the stage, but if he wanted to get out of there, he wanted to get out of there. So, I mean, he didn't fake talk to a girl he doesn't know on the stage for 30 seconds. Like, is that why we're mad now? Like, get a life.
It's so funny because Twitter, you always get both sides of every spectrum. You get both opinions. On one hand, people are like, "Oh, Morgan Wallen is not a good guy. He walked off the stage because some of the cast members are different races and different sexualities. He didn't like it," which is a stretch, an assumption. But then you have people going like, "Good for Morgan Wallen, man, making SNL irrelevant again." Like, you get both sides, and it's just so funny.
Yeah, I mean, he did his job and he dipped. There's no greater fan than the Irish exit than me. That's the best move ever, is when you're done being somewhere, you leave. You don't have to say goodbye to everybody and have a long exchange of pleasantries. Also, too, as someone who's not the biggest fan of New York City, I completely get it. Get on that plane and go anywhere but there.
I mean, how different is this from Hanford Dixon walking out of Giant Eagle at 7:01 and just saying, "All right, dog, I'll see you. I'll catch you."
Wasn't in the contract to stick around, huh?
No.
All right, we got to get out of here, guys. That's our time. Thank you, everybody, for watching The Big Factor and the Big Play Sports Network. Thanks to Garage Beer. Thanks to Fairway Ford. We'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Peace.